Hello, Stephen.
Hi there. Let me,
Nice to meet you.
yes, it's a pleasure. My volume, oh, let me see. I am not videoing here.
All right. I had a couple of people drop out, and you're the only one who's confirmed. I'm expecting a couple more people to show up in the next few minutes.
Not a problem.
How's your day going?
My day's fantastic here in Sedona. Have you been this way before?
I have not. I've been through Arizona as a kid. I don't think I've ever been to Sedona, though.
Just beautiful today. It's about 80 degrees, just clear skies. I'm straight on shot at some monument called Bell Rock. So it's just beautiful here today.
Glad to hear that.
Yep. And how did it go for you yesterday? Did you also have
It went pretty well. A couple of people dropped out, so it wasn't what I was expecting it to be, but we had a nice conversation. And we basically talked about the Pentagon and the UAP verification and implications of that. I'm hoping today we can talk a little bit more about channeling and inspiration and written connection.
Yes.
There's a guy coming who's a science fiction author. I'm not sure what he'll be contributing, but I'm sure it'll be relevant. And I've had a lot of experience with writing spontaneously, not automatic writing, but sort of like effortless, spontaneous prose type of writing. And I feel that there's a lot more to that than just, a parlor trick. There's definitely a connection being made with an overmind. Now, here's another guest arriving. Let's see. This is Nick. This is the science fiction author I spoke of. He's got to get his video on.
Hi, how's it going?
Hi, Nick. How you doing?
Pretty good. Let me get the video going. There we go.
All
Hi there,
right.
Nick.
Hi, how's it going?
That's Stephen Ross, and he's got a company or a website anyway called Less Complicated, and he knows a lot about metaphysics and channeling. And you wanted to contribute your opinion or your expression, your experience of connection with aliens, extraterrestrials, at least the idea of such as a writer. So anyone can open the discussion, anyone can start the first round. I'll do it.
Okay.
So the Pentagon recently verified the presence of unidentified aerial phenomena. Now that can relate to anything unknown, anything mysterious, and that we now have official verification of its existence is really nothing new. It's happened before, but not for a very long time. That caused me that renewed my interest in the UFO topic. I had sort of fallen out of currency with that and devoted more to fiction and literature. And it awakened an interest in the idea of contact with alien intelligence and just how different that is and what steps need to be taken to enable and make that easy. So that's my first point, is that there have been like 70 to 100 years, depending whose account you believe, of when first contact was made, where the official policy on that one has been denial and ridicule. So a lot of belief structures have sprung up in that absence of official, detail. And we may encounter disparities in our belief systems tonight as we have our conversation, but let's all be respectful of one another, take everybody at their word. And I think that's a pretty good opening salvo. Does anyone have a response?
Well, thank you, Zach. And how about, if it's okay, maybe just a brief introduction of each person, their background, or I
Sounds
think that'll
great.
give, for me at least, some kind of frame of reference here.
Sure.
Well,
Okay.
I can start, or Nick, would you like to start? It's
You go ahead and start.
okay. I have two organizations. One, World Research Foundation, I founded in 1984. It gathers information. In fact, behind me is 20,000 books dating to the 1400s in every form of alternative medicine, ancient philosophy, alchemy, various things on that order. I sustained a knee injury when I was at my university, was sent to the sports physician for the Dodgers, Rams, Lakers, said that I wouldn't run again without surgery, but I found a therapy in a Popular Mechanics magazine. It had nothing to do with medicine. I asked Dr. Curlin about it. This was 1968. He said it was holistic garbage. It would never work. I decided to do it myself. And that year I finished 5th in the United States for 100 meters. So it planted a seed for me. What other things exist in this world that we don't know about here in the United States? And so since 23 years old, I'm 72, I've gone around the world investigating anything with alternative medicine. That was 68. In 73, I met a Native American in North Hollywood, California, not exactly a hotbed of spirituality. And he said all my future guidance would come in my dreams. I was so anxious to have a dream that I went 1 week without sleeping because I kept thinking, oh, I'm going to go to sleep. I'm going to have a dream. After that, I did have a dream. I followed through with that dream. And then I had 6 dreams every night for 3 months on every phase of my personality, likes, dislikes. Then I began getting telephone numbers at night. I would have a yellow pad. I would not open my eyes. I would write down the dream, go back to sleep, write another dream. But with the telephone numbers, I would call, and I was told when I called, somebody was waiting for me. They had information, and that is how we've acquired parchment scrolls, rare materials. I don't know if you're familiar with something called the Rife microscope, which a lot of people are aware of. Had the original Rife microscope, not these Rife treatment devices, but Rife's original materials that I received where to go through dreams. I've done healing work all over the world, hearing voices that have told me what to do. So I'm a very firm believer in the extra dimension, but my PhD's in finance. So I just wanted to give both of you a quick little background that I like everything from math, science, to as far out as we're going to go esoterically, because I have had a lot of experiences over the last 50 years all over this planet where I believe comes from partly my higher self, but partly from other intelligences. So that is where I'm coming from.
Very good. And I neglected to mention that prior to the Pentagon verification, I had been writing a book, and I had just completed a book that was a partial biography of a friend of mine who channels a Pleiadian. And even so, I was out of the loop as far as paying attention to, nuts and bolts of the UFO stuff until that Pentagon verification. Otherwise, I've been writing for most of my life, and usually fiction, but I've had an interest in the esoteric for a number of years, and most strongly I've researched ancient alien presence via Zecharia Sitchin, and I've read a few books by Whitley Strieber and a few books by John Keel. And I've read a whole lot of books on metaphysics by any number of authors. So that's my background.
Okay. My background is I'm a former archaeologist. That's what I went to college for in grad school. I don't do that anymore because I didn't want to become a college professor. And that's pretty much all you can do with that degree unless you want to work for gold mining companies and oil pipeline companies and that sort of thing. And I didn't want to do that either. I'm the former staff writer for Modern Drunkard magazine and travel writer, poetry editor for them. I am the author of literary fiction called Whiskey Boat, and the first book in a series, a sci-fi series called Children of the Blood, and I have a fantasy novel coming out at the end of September. So my background is science, anthropology specifically, and one of the main things that influences my writing is Carl Jung. I'm very influenced by Jungian archetypes. And so when I look at stuff like when we're talking about alien contact, whether or not it exists or not, I'm not going to go out on a limb on that because it hasn't been proven to me significantly enough. But I'm curious as to the need that we have to believe in that contact, which
Right.
I think is,
That's
which
a
is
good
kind of a
point.
Jungian way to look at it, but and I think that's a fascinating subject, whether or not aliens are visiting us or not. I think it's important that we look and see why we want them to.
Sure.
I like that.
Yeah.
So do you have a hypothesis on that, Nick? Do you like Nicholas, or is Nick okay?
Just Nick's
Okay.
fine.
Yeah.
I should have changed this because it's got my real name, not my pen name on it, but which is Nick Plumber. But yeah, kind of. I mean, one of the things that like looking back at all the arguments, the scientific arguments against contact, one of them being the limit of the speed of light, which, there's some interesting research doing about that going around. Einstein and him saying that you can't pass the speed of light. And, with quantum physics and some of that, it's interesting that they're talking about that. But still, at this point, they're saying they wouldn't be able to reach us. But the question is, why would we want them to at this point? And I think a lot of that is the concept of each civilization, alien civilization, our civilization, just being stuck in this bubble for their entire history and never being able to reach out to another civilization is such a lonely, lonely concept. It's almost heartbreaking to think about that. So I think part of it is the need for companionship is definitely deep in there. The whole reason why we would like there to be alien civilizations and like to be able to reach out to them and have them reach out to us is just simply that. It's the human need for companionship. I think that's a big thing.
So I wonder why people have posited this galaxy where no one can ever make friends with each other. A friend of mine the other day said that to me, and he compared it to the Fermi paradox. I'm not familiar with it, but the idea being that, like you just said, Nick, that every planet is unable to break out of its own shell. It just burns up its resources and they all kind of die alone. And that seems, I mean, I don't see where the evidence for that is for that belief to come into play, but some people go to that automatically, and others go automatically to there's abundance, there's plenty of beings, there's plenty of sustenance, the opposite extreme.
If you look at kind of the history of that, originally one of the main scientific views was that Earth is in such a sweet spot that the development of life would have to be, it was just a miracle of creation that we ended up here. But as the Hubble telescope and as more space research is being done, we're finding more and more Earth-like planets.
Yeah.
Evidence of Earth-like planets, and the universe is so vast at this point, you'd have to look at the numbers and go, definitely. And I think part of that was this whole idea that we're special. And I think some of that has to do with the Judeo-Christian tradition that we're the center of the universe and that we were made in God's image, and therefore there can't be other aliens, because that would kind of ruin that. I think that is some of the bias that was brought into like Western research into that. And but the other evidence that people point to is, I hate to say the failure of SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, but they haven't found anything. But the universe is vast, and they're looking for radio signals. So my argument against that is radio doesn't have to be the end all be all. It could be that there's a 150 year window where civilizations are beaming out all this information, and then another technology is developed that isn't beaming it away from our planet. So then you could look at it that way, that there could be people, they just aren't, or other civilizations, they just aren't beaming radio waves, or they could be pre-radio. You know, there's plenty of reasons for that. And also, you know, SETI hasn't looked, I mean, as I said, the universe is so vast, and they can only look at a small bit at a time. I mean, how much of the universe have they actually looked at, I guess is the other question.
And I'm no scientist by anyone's standards, but I always wonder why science believes it's got the market cornered on how to understand reality. I mean, I'm not beyond imagining whole other systems of science have been developed in other planes, you know, of reality, that, you know, our science really wouldn't determine possibility beyond our plane, is my assumption, but I'm no scientist.
I would like to dovetail on something you said earlier, Nick, in regarding to why there appears to be this need to want to have this. And if you look at the ancient teachings, know thyself, go within, our society here goes the complete other direction. You'll have a man who will search the deepest part of space. You'll have somebody go down to the depths of the ocean. But if you ask him why he continues to beat his wife, nobody likes to look within. Nobody likes to go. And when you brought up Jung, he was just a wonderful example of going within his alchemical quest. He's really somebody I admire, from the science to the non-science, so to speak. But I think what you were saying is very, very good. People don't want to go within. They want to keep going out. Everything is out. Yeah, there's space people out there. We're going to do this. Everything but look at why we do the things we do. So that would be what I would add to what I thought. I hadn't thought about what you said. Why? What is the need? But of course, my favorite movie of all time, I'm older than you, was the original The Day the Earth Stood Still with Michael Rennie. When they come.
Verado Nectu.
There you go. It's perfect. Yes. When they come, they're going to come, and people are, again, everything outside. It's going to come. We're going to get it from here. They're going to land, or the people, especially where I am in Sedona, with the idea that, okay, magically, everybody's going to be illumined instantaneously. And I look at that as, that's like somebody going to an elementary school, and I consider the earth a schoolroom, and going, you are now a college. That just doesn't happen in any strata that I'm aware of. Maybe people can be more open, but they're not going to become instantly enlightened, in my mind, or there really wouldn't be any purpose for us being down here going through challenges. So I like, that was just an interesting thought. Why do they have to be here? What people would be looking for.
I never wanted a spaceship. Like, I never related to physical objects. I never really related to even human vehicles like cars. I never conceived of spiritual beings as material beings, but I was blown away when I made a connection with someone who contacted an alien in a non-physical sense, who was actually a non-physical being as an alien. So there were no spacecraft even involved in the equation. It was very easy for me to connect with that experience or that story, that narrative. But when I think about Jung, I think about his last book was something of the flying saucer mystery, I think. And I think he came down to saying that it was a projection, but something like it was a real thing, but it was a projection, maybe a mass production, mass consciousness production. And I wonder about the triangles and the tic-tac shaped things that have recently been the footage of has recently been revealed. And I wonder if those people, in your opinion, Nick, are projecting those visions. And this is a two-part question. The guest on the show last night made the point that they didn't see them, only the instruments saw them. I don't know if that has validity or not, but what is your opinion of the recent objects, triangle and tic-tac shape, that have been photographed or filmed that's been released recently through a Jungian lens?
Well, through a Jungian lens, I'm not sure about that, because thinking about it, I can, there's so much skepticism, honestly, that I have about the validity of those images. Deep fake is easy, I mean, it's at this point we're in at such a technological level is that you can create those images, and they aren't just, you can't be sure if they're actually real footage. But the question is, why would someone create those? Either as a prank, but also, as you said, it could be a projection. They want them bad enough, and people want to believe in them bad enough. I would love it to be real, but I still have a hard time letting my skepticism go on that.
Right. Are you familiar with Stephen Greer's Cosmic Hoax film?
No, I'm not.
He's the guy who pioneered the CE5 initiative, which is like Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, means you summon the aliens. So it's a choice you've made to contact rather than a visit or an abduction. So I thought of him as like a good guy, but he, and maybe he is, but right after the Pentagon verified the UAP footage, he released a film called The Cosmic Hoax, where he says that, pardon me, Luis Elizondo is a master of disinformation, Jeremy Corbell is too trusting, and Jacques Vallée is not telling all he knows. These are like the three big spokesmen, or the two big spokesmen of the current release, and one old guard UFO researcher, Jacques Vallée. Stephen Greer now says that this is all a false flag operation. What do you think about that?
I think it's eminently possible, honestly.
Yeah.
I
mean, nobody knows.
Yeah, and I'm skeptical on that side as well. See, it's my problem is I haven't really, as much as I'd like it to be real, I haven't been given any evidence enough to convince me. And I'm honestly,
what you're saying.
And I'm honestly not someone who's very prone to the leap of faith. I've spent some time, as Stephen was talking about some of the things that that you've run into. I mean, I've spent some time on Lakota reservations. My uncle's sun dances. I've been to a couple of sun dances, and there are amazing things that are very spiritual. And I've seen some amazing things, but they haven't really. I haven't taken the leap of faith. I'll put it that way. It's still. I'm a skeptic. That's just how it is.
And I think a lot of it has to do. I am fairly visible with shows and podcasts, and the difference is I come from a very mechanical science business background. So for me, a lot of it is fact. But I personally had my bell rung a couple of times, And so it's a little easier for me to leap of faith. Yes, I went dragging and screaming. My father was a technical writer for Lockheed. He wrote all the books on how to repair stealth aircraft. So I grew up in an environment which was fact, fact, fact. My dad used to say, dreams have no meaning. They're just things that happen. And while I was still in the house at an early age, I have all these dreams which prognosticated the future, a telephone number, call up, acquire all these things as a result of dreams. So I have had it a little bit easier because I was a person who goes, all right, show me. If there's such a thing or your spirit's out there, I want to see this. And I remember kind of being reminded intuitively, better be careful what you ask for or it may just scare the shit out of you. And
Sure.
in my 20s and 30s, I did have a lot of things that had me wondering. I was looking under little rocks and pebbles and finding things that really shook my scientific side. But I think each one of us has some sort of, it's not a level, it's something that would move us along to some kind of stronger aspect. But you're mentioning you're skeptical of these things. The question would be, if they turned out to be a reality, would that shoot your whole world down? Or are you free enough to go with the flow if something really changed your core belief?
I think so. I mean, I'd love to be the whole alien contact thing to be proven true. It's one of the reasons why I write about it, about why I write sci-fi and why I read a lot of sci-fi is because it does answer something to me that I'd love it to be true. And I'd also love to see that we had a future beyond our planet as a species. I think that would be fascinating. I mean, there's a lot of stuff we have to solve if we're going to do that, but
right.
That must be part of the attraction of believing in aliens too, like they're going to come and rescue us before we destroy everything. That's often cited.
Well, you can look at our. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, you can look at our attitude, the cultural attitudes towards UFOs, and how they reflect cultural paranoia in the 50s, invasions, and how it's reflected in popular culture. Invasions were one of the big things in the movies and since War of the Worlds, and it reflects some sort of cultural paranoia. I think definitely the Cold War heightened that. But on the other side, we have a lot of people who want to reach out to the aliens and ask them to, as you were saying, solve our problems. So that's kind of yet another cultural reflection, I think, is that we realize that we've screwed stuff up pretty bad and we would like a savior to come down and fix it, some part of our culture actually looks at aliens as that they would come here and they would save us from ourselves.
There was the old Twilight. Do you remember any of the Twilight Zones?
Oh, yeah.
There was a great one, How to Serve Man.
Oh, sure.
I've read the short story, yeah.
It's a cookbook.
It's a cookbook.
Yeah. It is interesting. I've had maybe 3 experiences throughout my life. 2 of them, I saw lights in the sky. Once when I was in junior high in the Los Angeles area, another time here in Sedona, but certainly not close enough to say what it was. But I did have a very unique experience, which I'm just going to share on the surface. I have had my office in Sedona since 1984. And one day, 2 people walked into my office. The man was probably about 6'9" or 6'10". The woman I'm 5'11" and a half. She must have been 6'2". They had these piercing blue eyes. They didn't have a line on their face. They didn't even have blood vessels in their eyes. And you guys don't know me, but I'm an Aquarian. I love to kibitz and schmooze, and I give lectures with water balloons and paper airplanes. And so while these people were there, I was kind of doing play on words and joking, and they didn't even know what the hell I was talking about. I was saying some things like from 10 years ago or 15 years ago that would have been on our media, and they just didn't get it. I mean, they were like stones. And I asked them, I said, yeah, I said, why are you here? Why did you come into my office? Oh, we are here to deliver a message to you. And I said, okay. And they said, no, we're here to teach you how to get to the next state. And I said, well, that's very, very interesting. And I said, I'm really not interested right now. And they said, well, I'll tell you what, you call us when you're ready. So I said, well, okay, do you have a card? No, we don't have any card. Well, about 3 days later, I was in the shower and I thought, all right, if you suckers are for real, show up at my office again.
Awesome.
So you know what I'm going to say? They showed up at my office. I just come now. There were some things I didn't like because my skeptical part, Nick, came up when they said, yeah, we're gonna teach you all these things. And I said, okay. And they said, all we need is a place to stay. Maybe we can stay in your offices. And I go, that's not happening. That's not going to happen. But I've come across a lot of people around the world. They were like not real. They just were so bizarre. They were tall. They were pale white skin, blue eyes. See, I watch sci-fi movies all the time. My wife's criteria is, Steve, I'm only going to watch true stories. So she doesn't watch them with me. I watch them myself. But these two, so those would be my three experiences. But they were really something.
Wow, yeah. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. See, and I've never anything like that.
No, that's
skepticism.
So I have something to share about skepticism. Does either of you know the word zetetic? Zetetic. That is like, it just means proceed by inquiry. And what it is the ultimate skepticism. And I would say it's more of an allowance-based skepticism than a forbidden-based skepticism, where like the forbidding skepticism would just say, I don't believe that, that's not possible. The zetetic one will keep on turning the problem over and over and looking for ideas and angles of observation. I have one good story about it. You guys probably both know who John Lydon is, Johnny Rotten from the Sex Pistols. He's now an old man, and he was guesting on a talk show. And I know there's one in America called Shark Tank, but I think this was an English one called Shark Attack. And they were all the contestants were tasked with coming up with a good new swimsuit. And everyone created a swimsuit that looked black and sleek like most swimsuits. And Johnny Rotten said, isn't that what a seal looks like? Don't sharks eat seals? What are sharks afraid of? And he made a swimsuit that looked like a poisonous snake, and he won the contest because all sharks are afraid of the coloration of this poisonous animal. That's like the only animal they're afraid of, or whatever the sharks who are in question in this particular contest. So I would say that was zetetic thinking, where you don't just like go along with what everyone always does, because think of the hundreds of years they've been designing the swimsuits that look like seals, like shark bait instead of poisonous. I mean, maybe it's more expensive, I'm not sure, but that I think is a wonderful example of zetetic thinking. And that's the kind of skepticism I favor, but I often get stuck on the first level of skepticism.
I think to me, I believe it's very healthy. There was a great healer named P.P. Quimby in the 1850s.
Oh, sure.
And when when animal magnetism first came out and was the rage, Quimby found an unbelievable subject named Lucius Burckhardt in their town in Portland, Maine. And he could hypnotize Lucius to do things that were phenomenal, just absolutely phenomenal. But the reason I'm bringing him up is all of the books said that nobody could be hypnotized during a magnetic storm. It was in all the hypnosis books, all the hypnotists, and Quimby had one of his greatest sessions ever with Lucius in front of this townspeople, and they realized it was just a horrendous electrical storm.
Huh.
And yet he hypnotized him. And then Quimby said, you know what? It's a friggin' belief system. And
Yeah.
I am only going to believe those things which I personally experienced. And I brought it up when I use as an example, I bring up the modern times of nobody could run a 4-minute mile because your joints are going to fall apart. And the greatest athletes were running 4 minutes and 2/10 until Roger Bannister ran a 3:59.4. And then in 60 days, 4 athletes did it, even though they were finely trained, but that belief system just put them down. And
Very
so the skeptical part, my wife and I have agreed, especially with in today's media, I have a lot of doctor friends.
Oh, you've got another guest.
Both sides are very credible. And when they talk about what's going on right now, they have opposite opinions. And I couldn't tell you which one would be the best, which one would be right. So we just decided, you know what? Anything that we can personally experience, we're going to accept. And if not,
Very good.
we're just not going to. It's too much. Too many vast opinions, too many people saying that they have the answer.
Yeah.
But so even though I have had pretty good experiencing over my last 50 years, that doesn't mean I just believe every single person that comes in. And I'm going to have to say a good 85, 90% of the people who cross my paths telling me these things, it's BS.
Yeah.
And they can't do it. And that's what I ask. I've been on Gaia a couple of times, and they've got people there who say that they can read all these ancient writings and it's the aliens from there, and they've discovered a portal. And here's my question. If you're the expert and you know that's a portal, have you used it? Can you use it? Why are you doing a series of 8 shows? Are you using any of these things?
That's a good question, yeah. Why not go to the next level?
If you say that you understand what that is and you've ascertained, can you do it? That is my question. I like people can talk a good story, but can they deliver? That's the thing.
Charlie, are you able to hear me? We've got a new guest here with us, Charlie Dunlap. Not
Yeah,
sure.
can you see me?
Oh,
So it.
Yeah,
So
there
I'm
you are.
driving.
How's it going?
This is kind of comical. I'm driving. I just got off of a super long shift, was putting fires out all day. So I literally am jumping
Oh.
on as soon as I could.
All right. Well,
But
it's
yeah, I
good to
wanted
have
to
you.
like at least check in.
At first, I
Yeah.
thought it was a spaceship. He was calling us from a spaceship, Nick. That would be exciting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's my little
Charlie's just
spaceship.
coming in over Denver.
My
He's
little
just
bug.
about to make a landing. So Charlie, you're familiar, you're very familiar with Stephen Greer and the UFO stuff. I think when I met you, you were very into that stuff, and I was an outsider, like a complete outsider to it. What's your current take on the
Yeah.
Greer controversy?
Well, I think I'm going to repeat what I kind of communicated with you. So I have had awesome success as a CE5 ambassador. Probably, I don't know, about a decade of successful contact with like an 85-90% success rate. Like there was only a couple times that we had no visitation on our field site. I'm part of Ricky Butterfast's team. He was one of Stephen Greer's original core members. And it's not by any means my entry point into this, because ever since I was a kid, I was fascinated with extraterrestrial issues. I was always seeing, you know, UFOs in the sky, unidentified objects. I always kind of felt just naturally like pulled to that. And I've had lots of non-CE5 related experiences both before and after. And I totally I'm sorry, I didn't get anyone's name. I totally understand your skepticism. I don't expect anyone to believe me. And frankly, I don't really care, because I really appreciate and I'm glad that I was able to be a part of that. I feel blessed to be a part of that and connect on such a concrete level that I never would have dreamed of or imagined in my life. And I pulled tons of skeptics out into the field with me and like blown their minds, because it's natural to be skeptical about this stuff. And there's so much bullshit and just noise and disinformation. And that kind of leads me into answering your question. Is lately I've kind of moved away from that, the whole disclosure scene, because to focus more on inner space rather than outer space, because I see consciousness as the ultimate contact tool. And I'm so over the drama and like political infighting and controversy and scandals. So I'm much more focused on my own spiritual development, because I think that's the key to all extraterrestrial and metaphysical contact.
I agree.
Good,
but
Charlie.
at the same time, I can't deny these amazing experiences I've had, and I love sharing that with open-minded people. And I may get kind of more involved back into it, like check out and do an occasional CE5 or something. So yeah.
I'd love to try that one of these days. I'm sure it would be amazing.
Yeah, you should come out with me at some point. I'm looking to like reconnect with it again. It's been hard with my work schedule, and again, I had enough success with it that I felt it was time to focus more on my spiritual development. And you can do a C5 in your damn bedroom. Like you don't need to.
Good point.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm glad you could join us, Charlie.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Let's see. Who knows about Manly P. Hall besides Stephen here?
Oh, I do.
You do? Did you study under Manly P. Hall, Stephen?
No, actually, I was very blessed because I mentioned earlier that I've been guided through dreams throughout my life. And at 26, somebody told me about the Philosophical Research Society in Los Feliz, California. And I just wandered there one day, and there was a Friday program. Manly Hall spoke every Sunday for $1. And then the next Friday, people would discuss the previous Sunday lecture. And I happened to wander in, and being that I was new to esoteric things, I sat at the back of the room. At the front was Pearl Thomas, who had been with Mr. Hall, his head librarian for 60 years. And there was a blackboard with 6 points from the previous Sunday. A woman asked the Pearl Thomas, what did Mr. Hall mean by point 4? And for whatever reason, Pearl Thomas pointed out to the audience, and she pointed right at me. And the last thing I remember is I talked and everybody was looking at me, and I do not remember what I said.
Oh,
She
that's
invited me
great.
to come the next day. We spoke, and then I had a dream that night, which I gave to Pearl. She gave to Manly Hall, and Manly Hall called me 3 days later to come to his
Oh,
wow.
office, which I did. And he said, "Who are you?" And I said, "I'm a student." And he said, "What do you want?" And I said, "I'd like to go into your personal vault and copy." Up at the top right here are 40 alchemical books I copied out of Manly Hall's vault, not the library, but his vault.
uh,
And
Wow.
in his vault, I found a little notebook that said, in fact, it's dark now, but here's the secret teaching book. The notebook said, last material that arrived at the printer too late to be included in the secret teachings of all ages.
yeah,
Oh,
and
wow.
That
you
was so
published that
valuable
stuff,
because
right?
of his big book. And I asked Mr. Hall about it, and he said he delivered a series of 12 lectures of the material that didn't make it into the book. And I have waited all of these years, and I just published
Oh, wow.
what I found in his vault.
Okay, great.
So when Pearl Thomas said, "How long have you studied Mr. Hall?" I said, "I don't really know who he is." "How many books have you read?" "I've never read any of his books." So I have just been guided by dreams to go to particular places. And do I like Mr. Hall? Absolutely. I spent 3 times with him in his home, in his office. I have a lot of his materials, which I accumulated later, but he was a wonderful man. He walked his
Yeah,
talk. That's what's important to me. He walked his talk. And it's interesting. He spoke very little about phenomena. It was always how to live life, how to address challenges. He wasn't
uh-huh.
sitting there pushing metaphysical abilities as
Right.
much as Charlie something you said. Go within, self-unfoldment by realization. So I didn't mean to speak that long, but I really had to explain that he was really something. And he had his main library behind glass and then the vault. And the things out of the vault were what he wanted to have close to him. So
All right. Well, I've been
Cool. I
teaching.
really, really,
Oh, go ahead.
can I just quickly say I really resonate with that. I'm a psychotherapist, and I constantly talk about alchemy and just the importance of that inner work and everything. So that's like fascinating to hear you talk about all that. And yeah, just right on. That's awesome.
All right. Yeah, I wanted to bring up Manly because Tamra Lucid recommended Stephen to guest on this show. I don't know if either of you guys is familiar with a band called Lucid Nation. She's a singer and guitarist in this punk band called Lucid Nation, and she was a student at Manly P. Hall's Philosophical Research Society. She's just written a book about him called Making the Ordinary Extraordinary, which was one of his catchphrases. And that's how we got Stephen here. And I'm so glad you joined us tonight, Stephen. You're full of information and entertainment and elucidation and all the good things.
well,
Great stories.
I'm going to tell you, it's my life has just been one that I'd classify as just magical. And a lot of it came as a result when I dropped my math, science, finance mind and just decided just to go with the flow. Just
I like it.
when the dreams started, you better believe that the dreams for me, and Charlie, we gave a little introduction. Since I was 23, I've been guided by dreams all over the world, including getting telephone numbers. And when I would call those numbers, somebody would say, we're waiting for you. We have things for you.
Wow.
And it's all been accumulated here. But it was really squirrely at the beginning because, Nick, we were kind of talking about the leap of faith when you are fact, math, science, business, and then all of a sudden you're sitting with a yellow legal pad with telephone number, and it's like, what am I was 23 years old, and I thought, what the hell? What? So here's how clever I thought I was. I'm going to call and I'm going to ask, is Jim there? And I would call and the voice would say, we're waiting for you. But it all started because the first dream I had was there was a book of animals, a picture book, and I heard a voice say, what kind of animal is Steve? And it pointed to an animal. And before I tell you the animal in my dream, the voice was one of my volleyball teammates, 6-man volleyball, and I thought we were good friends. So his name was Bob, and I don't know why, because I didn't know any of this. I called him up and I said, Bob, is there anything bothering you about me? He goes, what? I said, Bob, is anything bothering you about me? He says, what are you talking about? Bob, is there anything bothering you? He said, are you sick? What's your problem? And I said, I want to be a better person. And then he says, there is something that's bothered me. I said, what? He said, do you remember Harold on our volleyball team? Do you remember what you did to him? I said, I don't. He said, now this is Bob talking to me on the phone. He said, every time Harold would make a mistake, you would glare at him. You would just glare at him. You wouldn't say a word. You were the All-American on our team. Everyone wanted to win your approval. You would glare. And when Harold and I would go out for pizza, he would throw up. And I thought you were a real hog. Now, you know, it was my dream and it was a hog. So let me get it back. When we were talking about leap of faith, it was like, I couldn't explain that. I couldn't explain it. It was my dream at night with a jock. He was a PE teacher, Bob. Nobody shows emotion. We just played, and he had that deep in his recesses.
Interesting.
There's so much like synchronicity with like everything you're saying, because one of the things I wanted to talk about was how dreams likely are one of the most like common forms of contact for many people. I've definitely had really trippy experiences. And just also what you were saying about like that sense of being guided through your dreams. Like for me, I've always felt like there was this like unseen force guiding me through my studies. Because like literally the questions that arise in like whatever I'm studying or reading, the next text or book or whatever I end up picking up ends up answering those questions. And I'm talking about like this has been going on like my entire life, and I credit a lot of just my knowledge and insight to this. And I don't know, it's just crazy. Like it just defies, I call it synchronicity because it defies any kind of logical statistical probability.
But now, Charlie, would it make a difference to you whether it was your higher self or aliens or spirits?
Well, in a way it doesn't, because I kind of subscribe to the law of one, that we're all just aspects or facets of this one, you know, this oneness. So in a way it's kind of like a moot question. But I mean, I definitely like wrestled with that. Like, is this, you know, this galactic team? Is it like my, you know, a higher aspect of me? or is that even a relevant question? I guess is where I'm at, like with it all.
Yeah.
Because I think we're all inextricably interconnected, and you know, in the highest states of consciousness we can possibly achieve, I think we would just realize that we're all one interconnected whole. So I guess that leads to the question, you know, is it even like productive to distinguish between extraterrestrials and like higher self? And
It almost
I really
seems
subscribe to like Carl Jung's sense of a higher self. But yeah, what?
Oh, I'm just agreeing with you and saying it almost seems
Yeah.
too human to focus on the factions and the distinctions.
Yeah, I find it interesting that we're talking about dreams. I mean, I'm quite often I'm guided by them, not in a spiritual way, but in my writing. I'll have a dream, and I'm like in Children of the Blood, one of the main plot elements came to me in a dream, and the dream was so vivid, I called in sick to work so I could work on it, because it was, you know, I'm like, this needs to be in the novel I'm working on. I have to put it in there. And I've used that in Whiskey Boat. I have a dream sequence that was very strong to me, and I put it in there because it's important. And so quite often, you know, and for me, I think I would go with higher self or the subconscious, or however you want to look at it, because for me, it helps if I'm stuck on some writing, or quite often it's my subconscious going, here's something beautiful that you could write and put into paper and share your consciousness with other people. And
Do you
so for me,
realize-
it's very important.
Do you realize the great people of the past that you join? I just recently did a post, and it was called, are these people super intelligent or just good listeners? And I listed 50 of the most famous scientists, poets, writers who all acknowledged they received their information through their dreams. And therefore, I kind of was making a point. If they had not come through with what they did, they would have not been considered the great intelligence super people. So my point was, were they really that intelligent, or were they good listeners? Just exactly what you did. People have finished Nobel Prizes as a result of their dreams. The periodic table and every
Yeah,
great.
Einstein solved his theory of relativity from his dreams, supposedly.
Yes.
There's like tons of examples like that.
Yes. So what makes us think that somebody is smarter than someone else? It's what they produce. But if they produced it through their dreams, and if they
maybe
didn't
no
do
one
that,
ever really produces anything independently. Maybe it's always a
maybe.
receiving and a transmission.
And dreams are a bridge to this, what some people call the super consciousness. It's just, you know, unlimited. So all of this totally makes sense. Like, that's why I think dreams are so valuable, especially if you can get in touch with them and learn to decipher like the dream language. I mean, the sky's the limit with that, you know?
Well, it's interesting. I have recorded my dreams ever since I was 28 years old, all the way through all of these years, written them down. And what I discovered was there is a design to the dreams that come through. I'm not talking about dream interpretation. I'm talking about categories of dreams that when you look, like I have over 50 years, they would be on various subjects, and they would come randomly over the years. But when you can review, you can go, oh, wait a minute, this was a prognostic dream. This was a dream about curbing the ego. This was a dream about health. And I discovered personally that there was a grand design to the dreams. And last November, I feel so bad about this because I'm running and getting books. I just published a book in November called A Grand Design.
Oh, take your time. We're interested. All right, A Grand Design of Dreams. Yes, I saw that phrase divine revelation, that's what made me think you might be a channel.
Well, that's why when we're talking about dreams and we're talking about introspection, here's what I feel. Dreams are direct contact. I don't believe in personally, I don't believe in gurus. I don't believe in endless courses and classes, and you're going to be a 4th level Reiki master. What is the one direct contact that we have that we don't have to go to anybody else? Our dreams.
Excellent point.
Charlie, I mean, you just said that, and Nick, it doesn't matter to me. I don't have to identify, although I do have some awareness where some come from. It doesn't matter. It's the end result. It'd be like when people come in with a health problem, they don't care exactly what the technique is. They just want to get healthy. So they're not going to care. I can give them 50 options and a packet this thick, and they're going to say, I don't want to read all that. Just tell me what works. And for the dreams, we don't need anybody else. And by the way, my book is not about interpreting dream there's thousands and thousands and thousands of books. And we have in the library here, I have the first book ever published on dream interpretation from 1539. And it is published from a manuscript from 200 BC. And
Holy crap.
so old, it's so old, I'm going to get in a second. It says, if you have a dream about Zeus or you're on the back of Pegasus, this is the dream interpretation.
Oh, good.
That's way before like Carl Jung revolutionized dream analysis.
It's
pretty awesome.
1539.
it's
My God.
funky. It is it's from
I really want to visit your library now.
Yeah, me too,
my God.
actually.
it's from the book is from 1539, and what's really good is somebody translated it in English.
Wow.
But it's really trippy to read. If you've got Diana on one hand and you got Zeus on the other and Pegasus going around, this is the interpretation.
Oh, wow.
No, but so of course I started collecting these after I was having my experience with dreams, and just curious about all of the people throughout time. And of course, in the, in sacred manuscripts, they talk about dreams, but for us, it's our direct link. It's our direct link to whatever.
Very good.
Yeah.
But by the way, I'm not
Yeah.
selling books here. We're doing this. I didn't.
Oh no, I appreciate it. I think we should do the next one of these in your library. 'Cause I want to look at
Yeah,
all
you know,
your
one of
stuff.
these days, I always said I'd come to Sedona someday. Now I've got a friend in the town. I can
Very-
visit
very-
your
very
library.
Oh, you're in Sedona. I didn't know that. I've been wanting to go to Sedona. So, wow. Okay, cool.
But now
I might
I
look
should
it
have
up
asked, where's everybody located? Nick, where are you?
Denver.
You're
I think
okay.
we're all in Denver.
And Charlie?
Yeah, Denver.
Well, it sounds like
Denver.
Denver's the place.
Tonight,
There's a lot
Denver
of
is
really cool people out here. I mean, you've got Drunvalo Melchizedek and his whole like ancient mystery school line. Like, there's all kinds of kind of fascinating like light workers and star seeds out here.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm grateful to you all for showing up tonight. It's been a great hour.
Good to be here.
We've had a great conversation. Does anyone have anything else to say before I shut down the Zoom?
No, I would just like to also thank you. And Nick, I'm going to say it was very interesting, that point you brought up earlier about what is the need that some people have so strong about the aliens, coming. And I thank you. For me, I love learning. I love any kind of new input and things that really have us thinking. So I want to thank everybody and
Good.
look forward. Maybe we'll do it again.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Well, it's
Yeah.
nice to meet you, Stephen.
Yeah, good
And,
meeting everyone. Let's try to keep in
yes,
touch
Charlie.
or whatever.
Definitely. If I have another podcast on this topic or similar topics, I'll be sure to invite you on.
Sounds good.
Cool.
Thanks a lot, and I hope you all have great evenings.
You too now.
You
Take
too.
care, guys.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Yeah, Godspeed, everyone.
So long.